I was reborn. 1980, Northeast China, Greater Xing'an Mountains, Choinggu. Squatting by the stream, I looked at the youthful face reflected in the water and rubbed my face hard. A group of aunties by the river were pounding clothes and gossiping at the same time, their giggles and laughter drifting over. I spotted that girl in the crowd at a glance. Floral cloth clothes, thick braids, cheeks slightly flushed by the sun, and eyes as clear as mountain spring water. She sneaked a glance at me, and when our eyes met, 2 red clouds immediately flew onto her face. Tian Yulan. She became mute after a fever when she was little, and since the old Tian family were outsiders, the village kids always bullied her. Only I had protected her since childhood. Later, when we grew up, people mocked me for hanging around with a girl, so I gradually distanced myself from her. In my previous life, in the winter of 1980, her father had his ribs broken by a wild boar, and she hurriedly got married in exchange for a 200 yuan bride price. The man was a drunk. Whenever he drank too much, he beat her. Within a few years, she hanged herself on the back hill, and her daughter also died of illness. As for me, I messed around blindly when I was young, and only after she got married did I come to my senses, feeling an emptiness in my heart. Later I went south to make my way, got caught up in the Strike Hard campaign. My childhood friend took the blame for me and caught a bullet, and I did nearly 20 years in prison. After getting out of prison, I made a little money and got married, only to discover in old age that neither of my children was actually mine. In the end, I personally sent the whole family off, neat and tidy. Before I died, I thought, if I could do it all over again, I would definitely marry that girl who used to secretly look at me and live a steady life in this little mountain village. Heaven really opened its eyes. Hey, isn't that the Lee family's second boy? What are you staring at? Loner, has that boy taken a fancy to you? The auntie's teasing pulled me back to reality. I grinned. Aunties, what are you gossiping about? Let me hear it too. Your eyes are glued straight to our Loner. If you fancy her, have your dad go propose. Another auntie egged things on. Loner, let me tell you, with Li Erxiao's big sturdy build, he's definitely a powerhouse in bed. A burst of laughter followed, and Yulan was so embarrassed she practically buried her head in her chest. I said directly, Auntie, you're right, I do fancy Loner. Yulan, how about being your big brother's wife? I promise I'll treat you with all my heart. Yulan panicked, hurriedly made a few gestures, threw on the clothes, hoisted the shoulder pole, and ran. I caught up with her in a few steps, snatched the pole, slung it over my shoulder, and walked on. Yo, before anything's even happened, you're already carrying water for your father-in-law's family? The aunties laughed again. I burst out laughing. So what? You saying I can't suck up to my future father-in-law? Yulan shot me a glare, and that look made my heart tingle all over. With skin as thick as Li Erxiao's, Yulan's bound to end up in his hands sooner or later. And honestly, with that big sturdy build of his matched with Yulan's big butt, won't the con collapse after 3 days of marriage, and 3 babies come along in 2 years? Laughter exploded. I carried the shoulder pole and swaggered ahead, with Yulan following close behind. As we passed old Wang Seven's house, his wife Wu Jinlian leaned against the doorframe and said in a mocking tone, Yo, youth sure is nice. You've got strength with nowhere to use it, so after you finish carrying water for Yulan, carry a couple of buckets for my family too. This woman had slept with half the men in the village. I shot her a sidelong glance. I'm carrying water for my future father-in-law's family. If you want some, have your Wang Laoqi carry it. Wu Jinlian arched her thin brows. You little brat, have you even grown all your hair yet, and you're already thinking about women? Laoqi isn't home. How about Big Sis takes you inside and teaches you a few tricks? I thought to myself, you can doubt my height, but you can't doubt the size of my little brother. I immediately shot back. How is it any of your business whether my hair's fully grown in? Want me to show you what I'm made of? Step back a little, and be careful or I'll smack you when I turn around. Wu Jinlian froze for a moment. How'd this brat get such a sharp tongue today? She wasn't one to take a loss, so she put a hand on the front of her jacket and shouted, Do you know whether I can make it gush or not? Come inside with your sister-in-law, and I'll fix you something tasty. I was about to talk back when a small hand gently pushed my shoulder. I turned around and saw Yulan's face red enough to drip blood. I chuckled, shot her a hard glare, then turned to Wu Jinlian and said, She's not like a crazy woman like you. Let's go, Loner. You little bastard, you think you can mouth off to me? Wu Jinlian hummed a tune and sashayed back inside. I took Yulan's hand and kept walking. Her palm was covered in a fine sweat. I didn't let go and slowed my pace. No matter how long the road is, it has an end. When we reached Old Tian's gate, Yulan struggled free of my hand and shot me a reproachful glare. She wanted to take the shoulder pole, but I jumped back and dodged her. What are you doing? I've carried it all this way. If you take it at the doorstep, wouldn't that make all my work for nothing? How am I supposed to make a good impression on my father-in-law then? Yulan was so anxious she stamped her feet and reached out to cover my mouth. As we tussled, our bodies drew close, and the scent of a young girl drifted to my nose. My expression turned serious. She crouched on the ground, the end of her braid brushing my neck. Yulan, do you like me or not? If you do, then when we get back, tell your parents. Once the harvest's done, I'll marry you, build a big house, and have a whole litter of little kids. If you don't like me, I'll turn around and leave. I crouched down and looked at her calmly. She gave me a timid glance, then nodded hard. I sprang up with a start and pulled her into my arms. Yulan, in this life, you're the only one I'll ever marry. My lips fell on her face like raindrops, and she was too shy to lift her head. Which little bastard is carrying on like a lunatic at my front gate? If nobody was keeping a leash on you, you'd be up in the sky. Cursing came from inside the yard, and my face stiffened. I let go of Yulan at superluminal speed, hoisted the shoulder pole, and stuck my head in with a goofy grin. Uncle Tian, taking it easy? Father Tian's hand, which was packing tobacco, paused, and he looked at me in surprise. Did you eat shit or something, kid? Calling me Uncle Tian now, instead of Old Man Tian? I gave a guilty smile. If you've got something to say, say it. If you've got a fart, let it out. If not, get lost. His gaze dropped to the shoulder pole. Wait, whose shoulder pole are you carrying, brat? Just then, Yulan's little red-faced head peeked out from behind me. Father Tian's face instantly turned green. Li Shanha, I'll fuck your damned ancestors. How dare you mess with my daughter? He grabbed a hoe handle and swung it. My face went pale, and I dropped the shoulder pole and ran like hell. Loner, hurry and stop your dad. I'll come see you again after a while. Wait for me to come marry you. Only after I'd run far away and couldn't see anyone when I looked back did I stop, panting heavily. I was delighted inside. Yulan said yes to me. In this life, I swear I'll give her a good life. I skipped all the way home, looking exactly like the silly son of a rich landlord. When I got to the gate, I looked at the little courtyard that had appeared in my dreams countless times, and I felt dazed. In this life, I'll definitely take good care of all of you. No sooner had I said it than, smack. A hard slap to the back of my neck, followed by my ear getting twisted in a 100-degree loop with zero wind-up. A calloused hand pinched my cheek. Such practiced technique, it was practically art. I didn't even need to look. Her Majesty Mother, Comrade Wang Shufan. What are you muttering about at the gate instead of going inside? You brat. Come on, get in the house with me. Standing in the yard, making a spectacle of yourself. She dragged me into the house. Seeing this, my dad, Li Weidong, coughed dryly twice and tried to quietly slip into the west room, while signaling to my younger brother and sister from time to time. My younger sister, Li Shanxia, rolled her eyes and slipped away. My younger brother, Li Shanfeng, with two big streams of snot hanging from his nose, said in a muffled voice, Mom, why are you hitting Big Brother? Let him go and have him catch grasshoppers for me to eat. If you're going to hit someone, hit me instead. His eyes were so resolute they looked like they were about to turn into light. I was in tears inside. That's what real brothers are. Smack. Thud. A hard slap to the neck and a kick. A technique nearly reaching the Tao indeed. As expected of a woman who gave birth to 4 children. This kind of skill couldn't be honed with even one fewer child. Why are you everywhere? Get over to the wall and stand there, face the wall, and if you want to cry, hold it back for me. Kids, Dad, you come over too. Dad froze mid-motion as he was closing the West Room door, then shot me a look. What did you do to upset your mom again? I spread my hands innocently. I don't know either. Wang Shufeng glared. What secret messages are you two passing right under my nose? Li Weidong, if you're so capable, why don't you go be a telegraph operator? And you, Lier, I mean you, don't just stand there grinning. Go stand by the wall, back of your head, and heels pressed tight against it. Stand up straight. I hurried over to stand next to Li Shanfeng. Shanfeng whispered, Second brother, I already got beaten, so grasshoppers aren't enough. You've got to get me some poplar grubs to eat too. Smack. One slap landed on the back of his head. All you've got in that head is thoughts of eating. Stand at attention properly. Wang Shufan sat cross-legged on the Kong. Li Weidong sat on a stool, and it was like a 3-court joint trial. Explain yourself properly. What's going on between you and Wu Jinlian? My head went blank. Me and Wu Jinlian? They probably saw me chatting nonsense at her doorway, and then the village aunties started flapping their gums again. I smiled helplessly, just about to explain, when Wang Shufan waved her hand and cut me off. No one knows a son better than his mother. One look at my expression, and she knew the two of us were innocent. Stay away from that loose woman in the future. If you get involved with a loose woman, will you still be able to get married later or not? I breathed a sigh of relief, just about to butter her up. Stand right there. Am I finished talking? Let me ask you, what's going on between you and Yulan from old Tian's family? Think carefully before you answer. The smile at the corner of my mouth froze. As soon as Li Weidong heard it was Wu Jinlian and then Tian Yulan, he quietly gave me a thumbs up. One look from Wang Shufan froze him in place. That look clearly said, just you wait until tonight. The intelligence station at the village entrance really lived up to its name. As I thought back, there seemed to be a familiar figure in that intelligence station. A figure holding a dustpan slowly overlapped with the figure sitting cross-legged on the Kong and ruling the Li family with absolute authority. Speak. I jolted. It wasn't anything else I was afraid of, just that Yulan's inability to speak would make my parents dislike her. I hurriedly asked Dad for help, and Dad immediately tried to smooth things over. Kid's mom. Calm down. The child is grown now, and isn't Yulan from old Tian's family quite nice? I think. Before he could finish, he was cut off. Look at you showing off. So you're the real parent, and I'm the stepmother? What I'm angry about is that this little brat will forget his mother once he gets a wife. He hasn't even married her yet, and when he saw me at the village entrance, it was like he had fire wheels under his feet, like he was afraid I'd cost him 2 legs. And he just floated right past under my nose. She pointed at me. You're the type who wouldn't even pick up a soy sauce bottle if it fell over at home, but when you're around some young girl, suddenly you're all considerate. You said you were going to set ground traps, but in the blink of an eye you were messing around with some girl, and the trap even ended up in her water bucket. The more I listened, the more afraid I became that Mom would get a thorn stuck in her heart, and things with Yulan would only get harder in the future. Stealing my nerves, I shouted, I just like Tian Yulan. I won't marry anyone but her. Mom, you can't dislike Yulan just because she can't speak. Anyway, in this life, I'm only marrying her. Wang Shufan was stunned. When did I ever say I looked down on Yulan? She's pretty and well-built. One look at that face and you can tell she's blessed. One look at those hips and you can tell she can bear grandsons. If she can fancy you, I'd laugh myself to death even in my dreams. She's more than good enough for you, 10 times over. So what if she can't speak? Those village women make such a racket when they argue, like broken loudspeakers, annoying as hell. It's even better if she can't speak. What I'm mad about is that you've got someone you like and you're still messing around with some loose woman. If I hear any more gossip, I'll break your legs. The moment I heard both my parents agreed, I was so happy I nearly jumped up and danced the cha-cha, and immediately started acting all pleased with myself. Yulan agreed to marry me today. Wang Shufan and Li Weidong exchanged a glance and sighed. Li Weidong took a puff of his smoke. Kid's mom. Take some money and go to the back house to ask Granny's son to make a match, ask about the bride price, and get the marriage settled before the harvest. After we're done with the fields, I'll take up the mountain to fell a few trees, and next spring we'll build a house and hold the wedding. Alrighty, maybe by next year Lana will already be pregnant, and we'll be grandparents too. An auntie-like smile appeared on both their faces as they started talking from one thing to another. One moment about a tiger head hat, the next about what kind of wood to use for a teething stick. I was completely baffled. Wait, I'm the one getting married, and it's decided just like that in 2 sentences? Dad, Mom, isn't this a little too rushed? How did it already get to sewing a tiger head hat? The two of them shot me murderous looks. Li Weidong knocked out the sparks from his pipe, tapping his palm again and again, as if to say, dare to argue one word, and I'll kill you. I just feel like it's too fast. Li Weidong looked around the ground, grabbed one of Wang Shufan's cloth-soled shoes, and hurled it at me. Pointing at me, he barked, you little bastard, quit acting stupid. Yulan is a decent family's daughter. Today, the whole village saw you two pulling and tugging while fetching water. If you don't hurry up, how are those old women not going to wag their tongues? Are you going to leave that girl no way to live? Mark my words, if you dare do something that heartless, I'll break your legs and dump you in the mountains. We've got the 3rd one to support us in our old age anyway. My heart warmed. This righteous northeastern man always had, whatever you're short of, don't be short on doing the right thing, on his lips. Growing up in that kind of environment, even though I was a bit of a troublemaker, people in the village didn't dislike me. I said seriously, don't worry, Dad. I'll listen to you and everything. I'm destined to marry Lana in this life, and I'll make sure everything is done properly and steadily. Li Weidong and Wang Shufan's expressions finally softened. Wang Shufan suddenly sighed with feeling. Who knows what great virtue you accumulated in your past life? Do you remember in middle school, when you shot up in height, your feet sweated like crazy, And you were always complaining that your shoes felt uncomfortable and made your feet sore. And in the end, only those cornhusk insoles made it a little better? I froze. Why bring that up? I quickly tried to butter her up. How could I not remember? That's why I say Mom's handiwork is the best. How about you sew me a few more pairs? Wang Shufan shot me a sidelong glance. You look like a shoe insole to me. Want me to beat you flat into one, believe it or not? That wasn't made by me. Like hell I had that kind of free time. It was your little wife who somehow found out about it and stayed up by lamplight to make them for you. I don't know what kind of dumb luck you brat has, running into such a virtuous girl. I'm telling you, behave yourself and put away any thoughts you shouldn't have. If I find out, I could no longer hear the rest. Tian Yulan made them for me. The news exploded in my mind like a nuclear bomb. My chest tightened. Sometimes, missing someone means a lifetime. In this life, I will definitely make sure Yulan and my family all live good lives. Humph, humph, Li Weidong cleared his throat. If a man doesn't get married, he never really grows up. That said, what are you planning to do? Keep loafing around like before and make Yulan live on nothing with you? Hearing this, I turned serious and gathered my words. Dad, I want to learn hunting from third grandpa. As the old saying goes, live off the mountain by the mountain, live off the water by the water. Our Choyinga backs onto the greater Xing'an range. If you want me to honestly toil in the fields all my life, I won't accept it. Besides, at this point, Li Shanha's eyes flashed with dazzling light. Hearing that Li Shanha wanted to go hunting, Wang Shufan was just about to flare up when Li Weidong stopped her. Li Weidong let out a long sigh. As long as you've thought it through. Your third grandpa is also an old head hunter. After dinner, the two of us will bring a few things and go to your third grandpa's house. Once you're in the mountains, you must listen to your third grandpa. If your third grandpa comes to complain about you, don't blame your dad for hitting hard. What are you looking around for? I'm talking to you. You brat are just asking for a beating. As he spoke, he pulled out his belt, folded it over, and snapped it with loud smacks. Li Shanha strode steadily and powerfully toward the outer room. His gaze fell on the huge water vat, his eyes firm and focused. He spread his feet shoulder-width apart, bent his knees slightly, and dropped into a standard horse stance. Then he took a deep breath and stretched out both arms, wrapping them tightly around the water vat like two steel pythons. With a low shout of, "Hey!" Li Shanha suddenly exerted force, and the water vat, originally full and incredibly heavy, was actually lifted clear off the ground by him with ease. The clear water inside rippled in layers from the violent shaking, yet not a single drop splashed out. At this moment, Li Shanha looked like a war god powerful enough to uproot mountains, holding the water vat steady as he raised his brows at Li Weidong and Wang Shufan. Li Weidong and Wang Shufan were struck dumb with amazement. Li Weidong patted Li Shanha's arm, signaling that he could put it down now, and said in shock, "There's definitely something with you, kid. Are you still my son? Did you run into some kind of opportunity, or what? With this arm strength, truly, had heaven not given birth to me, the hunting world would have remained in eternal night. If I so much as make a slight move, that mere old forest would be nothing more than a dragon crossing the river. I could sweep through it with my eyes closed." The corners of Li Shanha's mouth curled up slightly into a smug smile, and then he gently raised his brows. In fact, ever since he was reborn, although he hadn't felt anything especially obvious at first, as time passed, he gradually noticed that his body was quietly undergoing some marvelous changes. Just now, he had first carried 2 buckets of water, then bounced around for a while, and had even taken a solid beating, yet after all that, he still hadn't even taken a single heavy breath. You should know that before, no matter how sturdy his build was, he could never have done this. Yet at this moment, aside from a bit of cold sweat brought on by his mother's sudden angry shout, not even the finest beads of sweat had seeped out from his forehead. Filled with curiosity and anticipation, Li Shanha cautiously clenched his fist. In an instant, a power so great it was almost unbelievable seemed to erupt through his arm. The feeling as if a ferocious beast were about to burst out of its cage. It was precisely because he truly felt this surging, explosive power within him that the shocking scene from earlier had occurred. "Mom, with strength like this in my arms, you can feel at ease about me going into the mountains now, right?" Wang Shufan gave a light snort. "The old forest isn't that easy to get through. Follow your third grandpa and learn properly. Be extra careful. Don't go charging around all recklessly. Being steady and cautious is better than anything. Move aside, don't hold up my cooking. After we eat, we need to head to your third grandpa's house. Li Weidong, go bring me 2 pieces of firewood." "You really have no sense at all." As soon as she finished speaking, She briskly got the fire going and started cooking. Li Weidong also hurried off to fetch firewood. Seeing that no one was paying him any attention, Li Shanhe dejectedly picked up a small stool and went to sit in the yard. Li Shanhe sat on the stool with a cigarette in his mouth, looking up at the sky, lost in who knew what thoughts, the grin on his face so wide you could see his back teeth. Second brother, when are you going to get me some poplar and boars to eat? The muffled voice sounded in Li Shanhe's ear, and Li Shanhe practically rolled his eyes to the sky. Today he had really seen it all. What a perfect case of forgetting the pain once the wound heals. Looking at Li Shanfeng wiping his runny nose with his sleeve, Li Shanhe sighed inwardly. Considering you were just about ready to risk yourself to save your brother, I'll make sure your whole life is properly arranged, brother. Rubbing Li Shanfeng's shiny, gleaming head, Li Shanhe said, eat my ass, poplar and boars. Just wait, your brother will catch you a rabbit to eat. Li Shanfeng's eyes glowed green with excitement. Second brother, it's a deal, okay? When the time comes, you can have the hind legs, and I'll just take the front legs. Watching Li Shanfeng romp around excitedly, Li Shanhe shook his head helplessly and casually smacked Li Shanfeng once. Let's go, time to eat. After dinner, your brother here still has things to do. With that, he walked into the house and sat down by the edge of the Kong. At home, Li Shanhe's family normally used a traditional Kong table. The table was neither too big nor too small, just enough for their whole family to sit around it. Whenever it was mealtime, the whole family would gather around noisily, placing the steaming, fragrant dishes on the table. In that tiny space, everything was filled with warmth and the feeling of family. Even though it was just an ordinary Kong table, to Li Shanhe's family, it carried countless beautiful memories and deep family affection. At dusk, as the sun set, the afterglow streamed through the window and fell on the old wooden table in the room. On the table sat a steaming basin of shredded radish soup, with milky white broth and crystal-clear strips of radish floating in it, giving off an enticing aroma. Beside it were a plate of fresh green scallions and a small bowl of richly colored soybean paste. Li Shanhe eagerly sat down at the table, picked up a bowl of sorghum rice and water, and started scarfing it down with loud slurps. Li Shanhe ate with great relish, finishing one bowl in no time. Without pausing, he immediately filled himself another bowl and continued wolfing it down. Accompanied by slurping sounds, he quickly polished off the second and third bowls of sorghum rice and water. Finally, he set down his bowl and chopsticks in satisfaction, casually wiped his mouth with his rough big hand, and then let out a long belch. That belch seemed like the highest praise for this delicious dinner, and also declared that he was full and satisfied. He casually lit a cigarette and handed one to Li Weidong as well. After the father and son finished smoking, they got up and prepared to set off for third grandpa's house. Li Shanhe carried a bucket of corn liquor and several strings of dried goods, and went out with his father. On the way they ran into a few neighbors, who saw what Li Shanhe was carrying and joked, "Oh, where are you off to? Looks like there's something important to discuss." Li Shanhe laughed and exchanged a few words, then hurried on. When they arrived at third grandpa's house, he was sitting in the yard cleaning his gun. Seeing the two of them arrive, third grandpa's eyes crinkled with a smile. But the moment he noticed what Li Shanhe was carrying, his face dropped and he started cursing right away. "Dabaozi, you think you've grown capable now, huh? What? You don't recognize me as your third uncle anymore. You come to my house bringing things. Now you'd better explain yourself to me properly." Dabaozi was Li Weidong's childhood nickname. Watching his old man hunch his neck like that, he looked even more like a grandson than an actual grandson. Third grandpa's name was Li Baocheng, and he and Li Shanhe's grandfather Li Baokai were not biological brothers. According to what Li Shanhe had heard from his grandfather, when the Japanese invaded, more than 30 paternal cousins and brothers from their village enlisted together, and after defeating the Japanese, they fought Chiang Kai-shek. In the end, only his grandfather Li Baokai, second grandpa Li Baodian, and third grandpa Li Baocheng were left. Just as peace seemed within sight, and the surviving cousins had been arranged by the organization to return to their roots, the three brothers talked it over and figured that only the three of them were left, and they were too ashamed to go back, so they simply settled down in the northeast. That was how they finally put down roots. They had already been brothers in the same clan genealogy, and they had also shared life and death bonds, making them closer than biological brothers. Li Shanhe's father, Li Weidong, don't be fooled by how decent he looks now, was quite a bastard when he was young. Li Shanhe took after his roots in that regard, and he had been disciplined by second grandpa and third grandpa quite a lot, which was why he held third grandpa in such awe. Seeing the look on his father's face, Li Shanhe hurried forward to explain for him. "Third grandpa, it has nothing to do with my dad. He just happened to give me a ride on the way. Here's the thing. I'm getting married to Yulan from the old Tian family. I can't let my wife and child follow me and live on nothing. With the greater Xing'an range at our back, surely I can dig something out of the mountains to support my wife and child. If I don't go out and make something of myself, wouldn't this big build of mine be for nothing? The moment third grandpa heard that Li Shanhe was preparing to get married, his face lit up at once. Back when he was at war, he had no idea where he'd been injured, but it left him unable to have children. And he and third grandma had lived their whole lives together as just the two of them, always treating Li Shanhe like a real grandson. The less a person has of something, the more they cherish it. So when he heard Li Shanhe say he was getting married, and even turning over a new leaf, planning to head into the mountains to support his wife and child, he quickly said, "Getting married is good. That girl from the old Tian family is good too. You can tell at a glance she's the kind who'll bear children easily. Hurry up and put a whole litter in her belly. Then I'll become a great grandpa too. But you brat do look like you've become something now. You're a real man. Taking you into the mountains is nothing at all. Why are you bringing stuff over to me when it's not even a holiday or festival? Hurry and take it back," Li Shanhe said with a cheeky grin. "Third grandpa, I didn't bring this because I'm asking you for a favor. This is specially brought by your eldest grandson to show filial respect to you. 3-year-aged corn liquor. Could my dad even appreciate drinking this? Giving it to him would be a complete waste, so I brought it over to honor you. And these dried goods too. Aren't they what your eldest grandson brought over as drinking snacks for you? Spicy pepper stir-fried with hazel mushrooms. Don't even mention how fresh and tasty it is." Third grandpa raised his brows. "You really do know how to talk, kid. Look at your dad's sorry face. It annoys me just seeing it. What's the fun of drinking with only vegetables? Tomorrow third grandpa will take you up the mountain, and we'll bring back some wild game. We'll call your grandpa and your second grandpa too, and us old fellows will have a few drinks. All right, put the things down. And you too, Dabayozi. You're a grown man, yet you're not as good at talking as a little kid. 3 blows, and still not a fart out of you. There's a stool over there. Hurry up and sit down." Li Shanhe was just about unable to hold back his laughter when Li Weidong shot him a hard glare, and he quieted down and sat back down. Then a kind voice came over. "Old man, who are you talking to? Do we have guests at home?" "Old lady," Dabayozi brought her over. Tap tap. The sound of slippers dragging across the floor came over. The person had not arrived, but the voice came first. "Oh, is here? I heard you got involved with that young girl from the Tian family today?" Li Shanhe was speechless. So third grandma was also part of the village rumor mill at the end of the village. He thought to himself, but his body was very honest as he sprang to his feet with a whoosh. Li Weidong also stood up with a whoosh. Third auntie and third grandma almost spoke at the same time. Standing up and greeting elders when you see them is behavior etched into the bones of every northeastern child. "Ah, sit. Shanhe, tell grandma what exactly happened." Ahem, ahem. Third grandpa beside them cleared his throat and said, is getting ready to marry the young girl from the Tian family. This visit is for me to teach him how to hunt in the mountains." When third grandma heard the news, she beamed with joy too, holding Li Shanhe's hand and chattering on for a while longer. As the sky gradually darkened, seeing that third grandma still showed no sign of stopping, third grandpa said to Li Weidong, "Dabayozi, it's getting late. Take her back. Just have her come find me tomorrow." Then he turned and instructed Li Shanhe again. No need to come too early tomorrow. If it's too early, there'll be fog in the woods, and we won't be able to get in either. Head back now." Li Shanhe nodded and followed Li Weidong home. Li Weidong walked in front, Li Shanhe followed behind. The whole way, neither father nor son spoke. When they reached the door of the house, Li Weidong stopped, turned around to face Li Shanhe, and fumbled through the pockets on his clothes. Finally, he pulled out a half-pack of crumpled Dakiamin cigarettes from his jacket pocket and took one out, clamping it at the corner of his mouth. Then handed one to Li Shanhe as well. Li Shanhe froze for a moment, then solemnly reached out with both hands to accept the crumpled Dakiamin cigarette. With a scratch, Li Shanhe struck a match, carefully shielding the flame with his hand as he held it out to Li Weidong. Li Weidong also cupped both hands around Li Shanhe's outstretched hand, lit the cigarette, and gently patted the back of Li Shanhe's hand. Li Shanhe withdrew his hand, tilted his head to light his own cigarette, waved the match to extinguish the flame, casually tossed it to the ground, stamped out the remaining spark, and took a deep drag. Then slowly exhaled a long plume of smoke. Father and son looked at each other in silence. Only the glowing cigarette tips flickered in the mountain village night along with the chirping of insects. After finishing the cigarette, Li Weidong gave Li Shanha's shoulder a heavy pat with his hand and grinned. Good one, you little brat. Come on, let's go home and sleep. Get some good rest. Tomorrow you still have to go into the mountains with your third grandpa. Li Shanha knew that in his father's heart, he was no longer a child. He was already a real man who could support a household. This was a special coming-of-age ceremony for Northeastern children. People in later generations always said that a Northeastern child's coming-of-age gift was a train ticket heading south. But in Li Shanha's view, a Northeastern child's coming-of-age ceremony was a cigarette from his father, a look of approval, or even just a light pat on the shoulder. This was the land he deeply loved, and the men here were like this land too. Deep, solid, yet not good at expressing themselves. Li Shanha answered irrelevantly, Dad, don't worry. I will definitely let Grandpa and Grandma, you and Mom, my younger brothers and sisters, and Yulan live a good life. Li Weidong gave him a smack on the back of the neck and glared as he said, You little bastard, showing off, are you? With your grandparents and your old man me still here, do we need you? Your father here is still in the prime of life. Maybe I can even give you another little brother or sister. You think I need you to support me? Just live your own little life well. That's better than anything. If I ever hear that you're bullying Yulan, if I don't break your legs, then I'm not your father. The hard-won fatherly love he had just felt was sent right back by that smack on the neck. Just as he was about to speak, he heard his mother calling. What are you two father and son doing standing at the gate instead of coming into the yard, playing door gods? Get your butts in here and go to sleep. Coming, wife. Li Shandong's face-changing skill left Li Shanha dumbfounded. He shook his head and went back to the west room to sleep. After soaking his feet, Li Shanha lay on the kong, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep at all, while beside him Li Shanfeng was sleeping quite soundly. Li Shanha felt as if this day had been a dream, and he didn't quite dare fall asleep, afraid that after one sleep he would wake up and return to that era without Yulan. Amid his wild thoughts, he actually drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Wang Shufan woke him early. Still groggy, he rubbed his face, rinsed his mouth, and sat down at the table. He wolfed down breakfast noisily, and finally felt awake. After clearing the table, he saw Wang Shufan carrying over a pile of things and reminding him, These are cornmeal pancakes, freshly griddled this morning. This is knotted pickled vegetables. Eat them with the pancakes. This is a leather water pouch. You can't just drink water in the mountains casually. Listen to your third grandpa. As Li Shanha listened, his eyes reddened, and he suddenly hugged Wang Shufan. Wang Shufan froze for a moment, patted Li Shanha on the back, and continued, Be a little more careful in everything. Nothing matters more than you coming back safe and sound. You're all grown up and still pulling this act. Get going. Li Shanha took the bundle Wang Shufan had packed for him, slung it over his back, turned, and left the yard. As the saying goes, when a son travels 1,000 miles, his mother worries. Wang Shufan stood at the yard gate, watching Li Shanha's receding figure, and her eyes couldn't help but redden too. Li Shanha seemed to sense something as well. Without turning his head, he waved his hand and quickened his pace. When Li Shanha reached the gate of third grandpa's house, before he even went in, he saw third grandpa in the yard sorting out his gear. Third grandpa looked up, saw the bundle on Li Shanha's back, and couldn't help teasing him. Are you heading into the mountains or fleeing a famine? Why are you bringing so much stuff? Put it all down. Just stuff a little dry rations in your pocket and bring some water. That's enough. We're not going into the deep old forest today anyway. It's not snowed yet, and it hasn't frozen over. That old forest is full of leaves, one step deep, one step shallow, and you can't even see where the pits are. Put the stuff down. You know how to use a sleeve gun, right? Come over and take this gear. It's all prepared for you. Before Li Shanha could even nod, third grandpa handed the gun to him. In fact, third grandpa knew that Li Shanha knew how to use a gun. The brothers in their family had all rolled through the battlefield. Who didn't have a few weapons at home? Especially Li Shanha's grandfather. It was said that a few years ago he found an abandoned Japanese stronghold in the mountains. Type 38 rifles, Wangba box guns, Mauser C96S. It was even said there were sweet potato grenades and bazookas. That's also why the old man lived halfway up the mountain. It was really because there was no way to bring all those good things into the village. Li Shanha clicked and fiddled with the gun, only to find there were no bullets loaded, and couldn't help curling his lip. Seeing the look of disdain on Li Shanha's face, third grandpa went up and gave him a smack on the neck. What kind of look is that, kid? Wet behind the ears and already acting unreliable. Why would you load bullets before even entering the mountain? And this too. Strap the mountain knife on your back, stick the hand blade at your waist, hurry up and tie on the leggings and wrist guards. Put your hat on, grab the sack, and get ready to set off. Li Shanhe cheerfully packed up his things, making sure everything that needed to be packed was packed. Third Grandpa looked at how Li Shanhe was dressed now and couldn't help nodding. At last, you look somewhat presentable. Let's go. As they walked, Li Shanhe said, Third Grandpa, where are the two of us going hunting today? To Yuanbao Mountain. Where else? With a greenhorn like you, how would I dare take you straight into the old deep woods on your first trip? In a bit, pay close attention for me. Watch carefully how I do things. Just so happens I set some snares in the mountains a few days ago, so the two of us can go see today whether we've got any catch. Old lady, I'm heading into the mountains. Hey, got it. Take good care of her, and be extra careful. After Third Grandpa finished speaking to Third Grandma, he took Li Shanhe and the two dogs and walked out of the courtyard gate. Let me tell you, there are a lot of rules in these woods. Big tree stumps, you mustn't sit on them. That's the mountain god's chair, and you can't fight the mountain god for a seat. When you're hurrying through the woods, you can't keep your head down all the time. You never know when a branch from some tree that's been struck by lightning might fall and kill someone. If you catch game in the mountains, the guts and innards and such, you should feed some to the hunting dogs. These dogs are just like people. Aren't they risking their lives going into the mountains with you for this bite of meat? As he spoke, he patted the dogs on the head. Good dogs, good dogs. The dogs seemed to understand Third Grandpa's words, wagging their tails hard and circling around him. And there's one more most important thing. Never point the muzzle at a person, whether your gun has bullets in it or not. Li Shanhe nodded heavily. Let's go. Entering the mountains in early autumn, although the weather was gradually turning cooler, the environment in the old forest was still full of challenges. The fog in early autumn was thick, especially in the morning and evening, when visibility was extremely low and a slight carelessness could make one lose direction. The temperature difference between day and night was great. Daytime might still be warm and pleasant, but by night, the temperature would drop sharply and the cold would cut to the bone. Without enough warm gear, it was easy to become hypothermic. In addition, September was also a season of frequent activity for wild animals, especially large animals such as black bears and wild boars, which might unexpectedly run into humans while foraging, bringing potential danger. Li Shanhe followed closely behind Third Grandpa, every step taken with extreme care and caution. His eyes never left Third Grandpa's figure, while his ears stood up like a rabbit's, constantly alert to any tiny movement or instruction from Third Grandpa. The two of them, along with the dogs, moved through the mountain forest, and before long arrived at the area where the snares had been set. Third Grandpa crouched down to check the first snare and saw that a wild rabbit had been caught and was struggling desperately. Third Grandpa skillfully removed the rabbit and put it into the sack, smiling as he said to Li Shanhe, "See, our luck's pretty good." When checking the next snare, however, they found it empty, with some messy footprints around it. Third Grandpa frowned slightly and, after carefully observing, said, "Looks like a fox came by and carried off the prey." As they went farther, the dogs suddenly became alert and growled softly toward a patch of grass. Third Grandpa grabbed Li Shanhe and signaled for him not to make a sound. At that moment, a fiery red fox dashed out. Li Shanhe raised his gun to shoot, but Third Grandpa hurriedly stopped him and pulled him behind a tree to hide. Even the two hunting dogs crouched down, and he said in a hushed voice, "You brat, are you trying to get yourself killed? That fox spirit was obviously being chased by something big. Don't you want to live?" Rustle, rustle. A burst of noise came, and then out of the clump of grass the fox spirit had just rushed from, a wild boar burst out. The boar looked extremely frightening, with a huge body and blackish-brown bristles standing stiff all over it, like steel needles. Its tusks curved outward, gleaming with a cold light like two scimitars. Its eyes were small yet shone with ferocity, and it snorted and wheezed as it breathed heavily, constantly sniffing the scent in the air. Third Master patted Li Shanhe on the arm, signaling with his eyes for him not to act rashly. At such close range, if one shot failed to kill the wild boar, then the ones left up on the mountain today would be the two of them. And in pieces at that. The wild boar was an omnivorous animal. Just at that moment, a crisp gunshot suddenly tore through the quiet forest sky. Immediately after, they saw a crimson flower of blood seem to explode on the rear of that huge, razor-tusked wild boar, with blood splattering everywhere. In the blink of an eye, thread-like streaks of blood quickly stained the wild boar's eyes red, making its originally fierce gaze grow even more savage and terrifying. Gravely wounded, the wild boar instantly descended into a frenzy. It charged wildly through the woods like mad, snapping trees and sending branches and leaves flying wherever it went. As for the dogs that had been following along, the instant they heard the gunshot, it was as if they had received some command to attack. In an instant, they arched their bodies, then shot out with a whoosh like two arrows released from the bow, leaping straight at the enraged wild boar. Third Master, standing to the side and witnessing this sudden turn of events, was so furious that his face turned livid and the veins on his forehead bulged. He stared wide-eyed and kept cursing, "Which bastard caused this damn mess?" Li Shanha, meanwhile, stared blankly at the chaotic scene before him and wondered to himself, how the hell did this damn thing get here? So it had actually been chased all the way here by someone. At this critical moment, the wild boar that had originally been hidden in the grass had silently darted to the side of where Third Master and Li Shanha were. They saw its huge and hideous body suddenly burst out from the dense vegetation, instantly appearing in the sight of the two men. When this wild boar caught sight of the two upright humans standing before it with long guns in hand, it seemed to lock onto them as its targets at once. Its eyes, filled with wildness and rage, stared fixedly at Third Master and Li Shanha, while from its mouth came a series of low, vicious grunts, like muffled thunder rolling, enough to make one's hair stand on end. Then, accompanied by an ear-splitting roar, the huge boar charged fiercely at the two of them like a heavy truck out of control. Wherever it passed, the grass and trees were smashed askew by its enormous impact. Without the slightest hesitation, Third Master raised his hand and pulled the trigger in an instant, and all they heard was bang. However, he did not even have time to see whether the shot had hit its mark before he quickly turned his head, grabbed Li Shanha beside him, and shouted, "Split up and run." Before his words had even finished, the two men shot off in different directions like arrows loosed from a bow. But that ferocious wild boar seemed completely unaffected by that shot just now, its speed not decreasing in the slightest as it charged straight toward them. Its sharp tusks gleamed with a cold light, and bursts of heavy breath spurted from its mouth, as if it meant to tear apart and devour the prey before its eyes. The two split up and fled, but the wild boar seemed to ignore Third Master completely and lunged straight at Li Shanha. Seeing this, Li Shanha cursed inwardly, "Damn it. This is my first time in these deep mountains and old forests. I haven't even done anything, so why the hell is it fixated on me?" As he ran wildly, he kept muttering, "Why the fuck are you chasing me for? I'm not the one who fucked your asshole, so why the fuck are you staring at my ass for?" Even though Li Shanha dodged left and right with all his might, the wild boar still refused to let up, keeping its eyes locked on him and chasing him all the way. Just as those boar tusks were about to jab into his lower back, Third Master was behind him firing the old hunting gun again and again, shaking the pine cones loose from the branches above. But that beast acted as if it had gone deaf, its eyes blood red, its hooves tearing up the black earth as it kept staring Li Shanha down without letting go. And so, a man and a boar launched a heart-pounding chase through the mountain forest. Li Shanha was running so hard that the back hem of his clothes had flipped up, and just as he saw an earthen ledge ahead, the guy suddenly scraped the soles of his feet against the ground and twisted his waist into a sudden stop. He spat out a mouthful of sticky phlegm and dropped his center of gravity. "To hell with this. I'm not running anymore." He threw his gloves to the ground and took up a horse-riding stance. At this moment, when Third Master saw Li Shanha suddenly stop, he was so anxious his heart was on fire, nearly jumping up. He thought to himself, shit, it's his first time in the mountains. This kid better not do something stupid." Just as Third Master was beside himself with worry, a jaw-dropping scene unfolded. Li Shanha fixed his eyes on the charging brute, reacted in a flash, slipped to the side and brushed past the boar, then lifted his leg and gave it a hard kick, sending the boar charging stiffly toward a big pine tree nearby. With a boom, the impact shook pine cones from the branches above. The rebound force knocked Li Shanha right onto his ass, and with a rip, a huge tear split open in the crotch of his pants. The boar, with its hoof twisted, spun 3.5 times and plopped into a muddy pit, its tusks plowing 2 furrows through the black soil. The wild boar struggled to get back up. Seeing this, Li Shanha hardened his resolve inwardly. "You still want to stand up? Don't you even know the most basic rule in the Northeast? Once you're down, you stay down?" Li Shanha sprang up like a black bear pouncing on prey, clamping both hands around the boar's big tusks like iron pincers. "Today I'll give you a full Northeast spin." With a burst of strength from his waist, he actually swung the 300-plus gene beast clear off the ground. The boar dangled in his hands like a tattered sack. Bang, bang, bang. It slammed into 3 old oak trees in a row, sending bark flying everywhere like firecrackers going off. But unexpectedly, After only a couple of swings, the wild boar's razor-sharp tusks suddenly snapped. The boar with the broken tusks shot into the distance like an arrow loosed from a bow, and finally crashed hard into a thick, giant-like tree not far away, then bounced off, as a heavy thud echoed all around. Even that big tree couldn't help but tremble slightly, as if startled by the sudden impact. Li Shanhe froze for a moment, then curled his lip. That thing was way too flimsy. I hadn't even really started, and you were already down, completely forgetting how miserably you were being chased just now. With a bang, before Li Shanhe could come back to his senses, that second brother pig actually hit someone after being flung away. They saw Zhu Big Head from the neighboring village hurriedly call people over to lift the wild boar up, and the young man underneath quickly scrambled to his feet. But he was a complete mess. It turned out that when the boar's belly hit the tree just now, it got the shit knocked out of it and sprayed the young man all over. The young man was covered from head to toe in pig crap, so angry his nose practically twisted crooked, and immediately cursed. Are those 2 holes above your mouth just for breathing? Didn't you see someone was here? Fuck, I think you did it on purpose. Perhaps because the pig shit had clouded his mind. After seeing Li Shanhe's tremendous strength, he still kept mouthing off wildly, and the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He immediately raised his hunting rifle and aimed it at Li Shanhe, roaring at him. Get the fuck over here and lick it clean for me. Seeing the other party pointing a gun at him, Li Shanhe's expression immediately turned cold. He raised his own gun and pointed it at the young man too. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Seeing this, third grandpa spat hard, raised his gun, and said, Zhu Big Head, what do you mean by this? Have you forgotten the mountain rules, or what? Now that my eldest grandson has cleaned up this bastard, you're coming over to pick up the spoils? If you've really got any balls, then leave the 2 of us, grandfather and grandson, in these mountains today, and let's see whether my eldest brother can bring people over and wipe out your village. Li Shanhe followed up, saying, the pig crashed into the tree, and he crashed into the pig. Looks like pig shit got poured right into his head. Third grandpa, don't worry. With me here today, they won't kill me with a single shot. The ones getting buried here today will be them. With the mountain at the back and water in front, this is the perfect place to bury people, just right for taking them out here. As he spoke, he held the gun in one hand and drew the hand dagger from his waist with the other. The 2 of them faced off against the people opposite them, not giving an inch in bearing. Seeing this, Zhu Big Head was sweating anxiously. In Li Shanhe's eyes, Zhu Big Head saw nothing but pure killing intent. He briskly snatched the gun from the young man's hands, set the safety, and then kicked the young man to the ground. Lu Monsong, I never should have brought you out today. Have you forgotten all the rules passed down by our ancestors? Damn it. You had no nerve when facing that bastard. If you hadn't been so fucking scared that you backed off, would that bastard have gotten away? And now you've got nerve when dealing with people. If you hadn't fucking begged me for your life, would I have taken you into the mountains? Who the fuck are you putting on an act for in front of me? His mouth was like a machine gun, unleashing a non-stop barrage. Lu Monsong's face flushed red from the scolding, and he craned his neck and said, rules. What fucking rules? Didn't the old rules also say that whoever shows up gets a share? Ask them whether they'll give us any. Hearing this, Li Shanhe let out a cold laugh and put away his gun, then pulled out the mountain-clearing machete from his back, his face ferocious, and slowly walked toward Lu Monsong. Lu Monsong was so frightened that he stumbled backward 2 steps, then felt he had lost face, and bluffed harshly despite his fear. Li the second, what are you trying to do? In broad daylight, do you want to kill someone? Li Shanhe gave a scornful smile and kicked Lu Monsong aside. Get the hell out of the way. You clueless fool. He kicked Lu Monsong aside and walked over to the wild boar. At that moment, everyone around widened their eyes, staring at Li Shanhe with faces full of horror. He remained calm and unruffled, and with just one hand, he easily lifted that enormous wild boar with its razor-sharp tusks. Next, a cold flash gleamed in his hand as an incomparably sharp chopper came slashing down. With a dull thud, that wild boar was instantly split in 2. Crimson blood splattered everywhere, and the boar's organs and intestines spilled all over the ground. The scene was simply too horrible to look at, utterly shocking. When Lu Monsong, standing to the side, saw such a bloody and terrifying scene, his stomach immediately churned, and he couldn't help but retch. But Li Shanhe didn't care at all. He lightly raised the tip of his foot and gave what seemed like a casual flick, and half of the still steaming boar carcass on the ground shot straight toward Zhu Big Head and the others like a cannonball. Li Shanhe's gaze pierced straight at Zhu Big Head like a sharp sword, and he said coldly, I dare give it to you, but do you fucking dare take it? Seeing this, Lu Monsong, who was standing nearby. His face changed, shouted angrily. Li Shanhe, what exactly do you mean? Are you trying to break the rules here? However, in the face of Lu Montong's questioning, Li Shanhe didn't even spare him a glance, still staring fixedly at Zhu Big Head as he continued to press. Want it or not? If you're a man, then fucking open your mouth. At this moment, Zhu Big Head was so unnerved by Li Shanhe's fierce stare that his whole body prickled and cold sweat streamed down his forehead. Trembling, he looked at the blood-covered mountain-cleaving blade in Li Shanhe's hand, his lips quivering as he was just about to say something in explanation. Meanwhile, Lu Montong was so furious inside he could hardly stand it, feeling that he had been completely ignored by everyone, and his already dark face had now flushed red with rage, like a fully ripened big apple. The veins on his neck bulged visibly as he tore his throat open and roared. Li Shanhe, so what if we took your stuff? Humph. If you've got the guts, then stab me and throw me into the deep mountains to feed the wild beasts. Just then, Li Shanhe had truly had enough of Lu Montong's non-stop nagging and cursing. Without another word, he leaped up and viciously kicked Lu Montong. With a heavy bang, Lu Montong's sturdy body flew straight away like a kite with its string cut, and finally crashed hard onto the ground. However, even after suffering such a heavy blow, Lu Montong still refused to shut up, continuing to mutter non-stop. Seeing this, the anger in Li Shanhe's heart instantly flared even higher. He dashed forward in a single stride, planted his foot hard on Lu Montong's chest, and roared through gritted teeth. Stop spewing shit here. If you dare say one more fucking word, I'll cut your tongue right out of your mouth now. And you too, Zhu Big Head. Did you fucking leave your vocal cords at home? Fine, since none of you will speak. Then let me ask you this. Who exactly fired the shot just now and startled that boar? You all saw it with your own eyes just now. If I didn't have some skill, if it had been anyone else, they'd probably already be back in the village with a funeral feast by now. Enough, stop playing dumb as a mute, and explain it to me clearly right now. Hearing Li Shanhe's questioning, Zhu Big Head and the group behind him all turned their eyes in unison toward Lu Montong, who was lying on the ground. One of them couldn't help but complain, "Oh my god, this is really some unbelievably rotten luck. How come this bastard is involved wherever we go?" At this moment, Li Shanhe was already beside himself with rage, murderous intent surging in his heart like a raging tide. With a sudden motion, he reached out and pulled an incomparably sharp dagger from his waist, the cold gleam of its blade enough to send a chill through anyone who saw it. Then he took 2 more steps forward and forcefully pinned Lu Montong's whole body under his foot, as if he meant to crush him on the spot. Zhu Big Head, take this roe deer and get the hell out of here. Today, just treat it as if someone got lost in the mountains, got it? Li Shanhe's eyes were wide with fury as he glared viciously at the man called Zhu Big Head. Back in his previous life, Li Shanhe had never been the kind of man to behave himself and let others push him around. In those days, when he went south to make his way in the world, he was surrounded by a group of strong, burly men. But they had no special skills. If they weren't acting as muscle, what else could they do? Go haul bricks for people. Today, Li Shanhe had truly, genuinely formed the intent to kill. If not for the mutation his body had undergone after being reborn, he probably would have lost his life here today. Brother, don't act rashly. We don't want this roe deer anymore. How about I compensate you with another roe deer? After all, he's one of the men I brought out. If I can't bring him back in one piece, I won't be able to explain myself either. How about this? From now on, I absolutely won't bring him into these mountains again. Even if he insists on coming in on his own, and by some chance you run into him. Whether he lives or dies then will be entirely up to you. What do you say? Zhu Big Head said hurriedly with a fawning smile. Just then, Third Master, who was standing nearby, gently shook his head at Li Shanhe and said in a low voice, there are so many people watching here. No telling which loudmouth might start spreading nonsense. There's no need for us to stoop to the level of a scumbag like this. It'd be better to think long-term. Li Shanhe kicked Lu Montong away. I'm taking the roe deer. Now hurry up and get this plague-ridden thing the hell out of here. At Li Shanhe's angry shout, Zhu Big Head hastily set the roe deer in his hands gently on the ground, then urgently waved for his men to come over and help support Lu Montong. Lu Montong's face was as pale as paper, his body swaying unsteadily. It was obvious he had been badly injured. Just like that, the group clustered around him like a pack of beaten dogs, and left in a sorry, disheveled state. As they passed by Li Shanhe, Lu Montong, who had been hanging his head low, suddenly looked up, and in those bloodshot eyes flashed a venomous hatred that made one's heart tremble staring fixedly at Li Shanhe as if he wanted to devour him alive. Faced with such a vicious glare, Li Shanhe merely narrowed his eyes slightly, a faint, hard-to-detect sneer curling at the corner of his mouth. He thought to himself, this damn fool's got a real death wish. He's already been beaten into this sorry state and still won't submit. If I don't come up with a way to get rid of him, sooner or later he'll become a problem. At that thought, a cold glint flashed through Li Shanhe's eyes, and he secretly made up his mind to get rid of this beyond as soon as possible. After watching the group leave the forest, Lier quickly called to Third Master to start cleaning up the game. After such a hair-raising upheaval just now, even Third Master, seasoned by countless battles and hardships, could not help but feel a trace of weariness slowly welling up in his heart at this moment. He slowly took a piece of deerskin from his chest, carefully spread it out flat, and gently placed it beneath his backside, then calmly sat down on the slightly damp ground. Next, Third Master reached into the cloth pouch he carried with him and took out a small pinch of pressed tobacco leaves, skillfully and gently packing them into the old pipe bowl that had accompanied him for many years. With a brief flash of sparks, wisps of smoke curled upward. Third Master took a deep draw of the rich tobacco aroma and contentedly blew out ring after ring of smoke. At the same time, he was filled with emotion. It seems that, from now on, this forest will ultimately become the domain of the young. Thinking back to Li Shanhe's astonishing performance just now, whether it was the astounding strength he displayed as he swung his thick fists and fiercely pummeled that savage wild boar, or the calm, well-reasoned, and dignified way he confronted Zhu Bighead and the other villains, or the ruthless and decisive way he dealt with the powerful enemy Lu Montsong. All of it made Third Master sincerely feel admiration and appreciation, especially when he thought about how Li Shanhe possessed such outstanding ability and courage at such a young age. Third Master could not help but nod repeatedly in praise, and he approved of him making a living as a mountain hunter. However, although Third Master was full of confidence in Li Shanhe, he still could not help but feel worried about the deep hatred that had just been forged because of this conflict. So Third Master took the initiative and said to Li Shanhe, how about I sneak over tonight and feed those two some sunflower seeds, so the whole family can be neat and tidy together, and we won't have to worry about the old ones coming after we've dealt with the young. Otherwise, we'd have to sleep with one eye open. I really can't rest easy. Hearing Third Master's fierce words, Li Shanhe could not help but sigh. The older generation really is more experienced. A family reunion, Li Baoqing style, just as expected of someone who had lived through wartime, wanting to send their whole family down there with 2 hand grenades. Hearing Third Master's words of concern, Li Shanhe immediately felt a warm current rise from the bottom of his heart and flow through his whole body. However, he did not accept Third Master's kindness, but instead smiled and reassured him. Third Master, don't worry. For that useless piece of trash, there's no need for you to personally step in. Just wait and see. If I let that kid live until the hoe is hung up, I'll write my name backwards. After saying this, the two exchanged a smile, then began to clean up and pack today's game. Li Shanhe skillfully picked up the gutting knife in his hand, grabbing the belly with one hand and cutting with the other, cleaning out those stinking entrails. When he was done, he gave his hand a casual flick, and the pile of entrails landed with perfect accuracy in front of the 2 hunting dogs waiting not far away. The 2 hunting dogs pounced forward excitedly and began to feast, eating with great relish. Next, Li Shanhe bent down and easily lifted the roe deer that had been dead for quite some time, then tossed it into the burlap sack prepared beside him as casually as if he were throwing away something insignificant. After finishing this, he took a sturdy rope from the pack he had brought before entering the mountains and began carefully tying up the 2 huge slabs of pork. His hands moved deftly between the chunks of meat, and in no time at all, he had them tightly bound together, deliberately leaving 2 long shoulder straps. Li Shanhe adjusted his posture and, as if carrying a backpack, hoisted the heavy pork onto his broad, sturdy back. Even though the 2 slabs of pork weighed more than 200 jin combined, to him, with his astonishing strength, it hardly seemed like any burden at all. He moved his shoulders slightly, and after making sure the load sat comfortably, he casually picked up the sack containing the roe deer from the ground, and then called out loudly to Third Master. Third Master, we should head back. Hearing the call, Third Master strode over quickly. Although this was not the first time he had witnessed Li Shanhe display such tremendous strength, he still could not help but feel shaken every time he saw it. He thought to himself, with Li Shanhe's strength alone, he could swagger through this forest with his eyes closed. But That is, as long as he absolutely doesn't get lost. Otherwise, even if he doesn't starve to death in these woods, he'll probably end up turning into a wild man. At this thought, Third Master could not help shaking his head, a wry smile appearing on his face. After a brief pause, Third Master continued, "We mountain runners, how could we do without hunting dogs? These hunting dogs are our eyes. With them, we can more easily spot prey, find those rare mountain treasures, and also make sure we can find our way home smoothly. I just so happen to have found a few good dogs, so I might as well give them to you. And as for De Huang and Lao He, who came into the mountains with us today, I'll leave them in your care for now as well." As he spoke, Third Master waved his hand behind him, signaling for the two hunting dogs to hurry over to Li Shanha's side. Seeing Li Shanha's outstanding performance today, Third Master could not help showing his satisfaction, saying that once they got home, he would give Li Shanha the little booklet in which he had recorded mountain treasures over the years. That way, Li Shanha would be able to explore this forest and search for mountain treasures on his own with the help of the booklet. However, Third Master also emphasized in particular that although Li Shanha was allowed to move about in this forest, he was absolutely forbidden from setting foot in that mysterious old forest full of unknown dangers. As for whether he was worried that Li Shanha might encounter danger in the woods, Third Master Li Baocheng looked completely at ease, saying there was no need to worry too much about that. With that monstrous strength of his, what real danger could he possibly run into in this relatively shallow part of the forest? Even if he unfortunately ran into a ferocious black bear that occasionally came down the mountain to ravage the crops, even if the two of them just stood there slapping each other, Third Master firmly believed that the one who would win in the end would definitely be Li Shanha. Why was Third Master able to be so certain? One only had to look at the pig's head that had been forcibly split in two to know the answer. There, right in the exact center of the pig's forehead, was a gigantic fist mark, and even the brains inside had been scattered by that terrifyingly powerful punch. From this, one could see just how terrifying the force of Li Shanha's fists was. Two slaps from a black bear would turn it into a giant Siberian hamster, and even a single over-the-shoulder throw on a northeast tiger would turn it into a northeast golden tabby. Li Shanha carried all the prey, leaving Third Master happy to take it easy. With a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, Li Shanha swaggered along in front, while Third Master carried the gun and kept watch for him. After what had just happened, it was really hard to relax, but seeing Li Shanha acting so smugly made one's hands itch just looking at him, really making one want to give him a few hard smacks on the neck. As the old saying goes, going up a mountain is easy, coming down is hard, let alone with Li Shanha carrying two slabs of pork on his back and a roe deer in his hand, trudging forward one uneven step after another. Finally, they walked out of the woods. After leaving the forest, Li Shanha looked up at the sun and estimated that it was probably past noon. He couldn't help muttering to himself, "Sooner or later, I need to get a watch. Otherwise, telling the time is basically just guessing, and that's really too inconvenient." Li Shanha first followed Third Grandpa to his house, and as soon as he stepped through the door, Third Grandma hurriedly helped Li Shanha unload the game and brought him a bowl of cool water, telling him to sit down and rest for a while. This lingering autumn heat was fierce. Even with Li Shanha's constitution, he still ended up drenched in sweat from the sun, which made Third Grandma ache for him. She took out a big cattail fan and fanned Li Shanha while cursing, "You old geezer, couldn't you help carry some of it? All you know is how to order the younger generation around. And another thing, how could you take hunting wild boar on his first trip into the mountains? Just had to show off, didn't you?" Third Grandpa was scolded into silence. Seeing this, Li Shanha quickly explained what had happened today to Third Grandma. After hearing it, Third Grandma flew into a rage and started shouting, "That damn Zhu big head. May his son be born without an asshole. Sooner or later, he ought to be tossed into the mountains. What a piece of trash." Then she turned around and started nagging Third Grandpa again. "And you, old man, are you dead or what? He's young and ignorant. But are you ignorant too? You should have buried them all in the mountains today. Keeping him around, sooner or later he'll become trouble. How about you go to his house tonight?" Li Shanha was speechless. Sure enough, people who sleep in the same bed really are alike. He quickly stopped Third Grandma and told her his plan, and only then did she drop it, though she still kept muttering curses under her breath. Third Grandpa looked utterly exasperated and didn't dare respond. He quietly turned and went out the door, and before long, Third Grandpa came back and carrying two puppies by the scruffs of their necks and handed them to Li Shanha. "They're yours. In a bit, take De Huang and Lao He with you too, and raise them well when you get back. with De Huang and Lao He showing them the ropes. By this time next year, they should be pretty much ready. Li Shanhe carefully took the two puppies from him, as if he were holding two incomparably precious treasures, and then began examining them intently. One of the puppies was black as ink, while the other was golden yellow all over. The yellow one looked sturdy and adorable, exactly the kind of De Huang people commonly imagine, the so-called Chinese rural dog. However, when his gaze shifted to the black puppy, he froze. After all, once Li Shanhe had made it big in his previous life, he had become a thoroughgoing dog lover, and he could practically be called an expert on all kinds of dog breeds. But this little black dog in front of him left him genuinely puzzled for a moment. After gently setting down the little yellow puppy, Li Shanhe focused all his attention on the little black one again. He saw that this little fellow was covered in a coat of pure black, soft fur. And under the sunlight, that fur actually gleamed with a sleek, glossy sheen, as if it carried a mysterious aura of its own that naturally inspired awe. Its head was small, delicate, and exquisitely shaped. A pair of upright ears stood like two neat little triangles, the tips slightly rounded, perfectly set on either side of the top of its head. Its medium-sized eyes were like two almonds set into its face, clear, bright, and lively. Then there was its broad nose, glossy black in color, blending seamlessly with the surrounding black fur. At that moment, Li Shanhe curiously pried open the puppy's mouth to take a look inside, only to discover that even its tongue was black. Perhaps Li Shanhe's handling had made the puppy a little uncomfortable, because all of a sudden it started yelping loudly. Hearing that crisp, ringing bark, Li Shanhe couldn't help but recall a joke he had heard in his previous life. "Hey there, fellow villager, judging by your accent, you don't sound like a local." At the thought of this, Li Shanhe couldn't help laughing out loud, and the little black dog seemed to sense his goodwill as well. It gradually stopped barking and blinked those adorable big eyes, staring curiously at the strange human in front of it. "Isn't this a 5 black dog? Aren't these dogs only found in Guangxi? How the hell did it end up in the Northeast?" Full of suspicion, Li Shanhe turned his gaze toward Third Grandpa. When Third Grandpa met Li Shanhe's puzzled look, not only did he show not the slightest bit of nervousness, but he couldn't help giving a faint smile instead, with an even smug expression on his face. Then he cleared his throat lightly and said, "Huh, big grandson, well, this dog's pretty good, right? Ever seen one before?" Li Shanhe joked, "Third Grandpa, did you get this dog by proper means?" As soon as Third Grandpa heard that, his previously relaxed brows instantly drew tight, and he couldn't help cursing. "You brat, what the hell are you saying? This dog was brought over some time ago by a lead harvester from the Changbai Mountains, Old Xing. They say a few southerners came over here then to buy ginseng, and they brought this dog along with them." Old Xing took one look at it and fell for it immediately, and without another word traded a pair of top-grade deer antlers for it. "Just a few days ago, Old Xing came swaggering up to me with this dog, and I was so jealous I couldn't stand it. So in the end I had no choice but to painfully part with a bottle of tiger penis wine I'd treasured for years to trade with him. Only then did I finally manage to get this treasure into my own hands." At this point in the story, Third Grandpa suddenly seemed to remember something, and his expression turned a little ugly, while his heart ached in waves. And when Li Shanhe, standing to the side, heard the words tiger penis wine, his eyes instantly lit up, and he kept staring straight at Third Grandpa with a look full of anticipation and longing. Third Grandpa felt uncomfortable all over under Li Shanhe's gaze, and inwardly he groaned in misery. "Oh no. Great, I let it slip by accident. Third Grandpa, look. Stop right there. You're not even married yet. What use do you have for that stuff? When you get married, I'll give you a whole jar." "All right, Third Grandpa." After sitting for a while, Li Shanhe got ready to pack up and head home. When he left, Li Shanhe had only planned to take one side of the wild boar, but Third Grandpa said the two of them couldn't eat that much, and eating too much wouldn't be easy to digest, so he told Li Shanhe to just leave one rabbit. Li Shanhe said there was no way he could do that, and in the end, under Third Grandpa's kicking and shoving and Third Grandma's persuasion, he helplessly took away 2 sides of pork, but still left the roe deer behind. Carrying the 4 dog heads, and without even looking back at the booklet, he ran off, afraid the old couple might try to give him something else. Watching Li Shanhe's receding figure, Third Grandpa shook his head helplessly, then turned to Third Grandma and said, "Old partner, make that boy a pair of double boots. When the snow falls, I'll take him into the old forest for a look around." Third Grandma nodded and went to deal with the rabbit and the roe deer. Li Shanhe ran all the way home in a hurry, and before he even entered the yard, He saw Li Shanfeng with his younger sister in the yard, lying on the ground with their butts in the air, playing marbles. Hearing the noise, Li Shanfeng looked at the huge wild boar on Li Shana's back and scrambled toward him in a tumble, cheering, "Second brother, does this mean we can eat meat till we're stuffed today?" "Mom, Mom." Second brother brought back a huge boar. "Mom, hurry and start the fire to boil water. I want to eat meat." What Li Shanxiao noticed instead were the two little dogs in Li Shana's arms. And she said timidly, "Second brother, can you let me play with these two puppies for a while?" Li Shanha put them on the ground and reminded her, "Go play inside. In a bit they'll be hot enough to steam." "Second brother, what are these two puppies called?" Li Shanha slapped his forehead. Damn, he had left in such a hurry that he forgot to ask their names. He muttered to himself that they were his dogs, so whatever he said they were called, that was what they were called. After a moment's thought, he said, "The silly little one is called Huzi, and the black one is called Haizi. All right, go play inside." Just then, Wang Shufan heard Li Shanfeng calling, and also came out from the house. Seeing such a huge boar, she was stunned too, and quickly helped Li Shanha put it down, circling around Li Shanha several times. Only after seeing that Li Shanha wasn't hurt did she finally relax, and she quickly asked about the details of this trip into the mountains. To keep Wang Shufan from nagging, Li Shanha downplayed the dangerous parts in his description. Wang Shufan nodded and said nothing. Instead, she looked at the two sides of pork with her brows tightly furrowed. Li Shanha noticed her expression and quickly asked, "What's wrong, Mom? Your son has gotten capable, and you're still not happy." "Nonsense. I'm worried about what to do with so much meat. In this weather, won't it all spoil before we can eat it?" Li Shanha laughed. "I was wondering what you were worried about. That's no big deal. It's still early yet. I'll borrow an ox cart in a bit and haul it to town to sell. Won't that settle it? We'll keep one side for our family, then give some to Grandpa and Grandma, and some to my eldest sister. When I get back, I'll send some to my father-in-law's family too, and that'll take care of it." Wang Shufan's eyes lit up, and her brow relaxed too. Right, that's what we'll do. Oh, by the way, this morning, old Madam Sun went to old Tian's house." Hearing this, Li Shanha hurried over and asked impatiently, "How'd it go, Mom? What did Uncle Tian say?" Seeing how nervous Li Shanha looked, Wang Shufan rolled her eyes at him. What else could he say? "After the harvest is finished, you'll get engaged. For the bride price, just give a token 100 yuan. You really don't know what kind of great virtue you must have accumulated in your last life to end up with such a good girl and father-in-law. They said as long as you two live well together, none of that bride price stuff matters. If you dare treat Yulan badly, you won't even need your father-in-law. I'll break your legs myself." Hearing this news, Li Shanha finally felt completely relieved. In 3 quick strides, he walked to the outer room, grabbed a water dipper, and gulped down a dipperful of water. He wiped his mouth with his hand, pulled out the butcher knife, cut off 2 jean of meat, found a sheet of newspaper to wrap it up, and was just about to head out when she asked, "What are you going out for?" "To borrow a cart. The earlier I go, the earlier I'll be back. I still have to go to my father-in-law's house." As Wang Shufan boiled water, she muttered, "A big rooster with a long tail gets himself a wife and forgets his mother. This hasn't even happened yet, and you're already like this, you little ungrateful wretch." But the smile at the corners of her mouth still gave away her true feelings. Carrying the meat, Li Shanha headed to old Zhang's house, and standing at the courtyard gate, he shouted inside, Fifth brother, you home?" According to the generational ranking on his grandmother's side, Zhang Laowu was the grandson of his grandmother's elder brother, so he and Li Shanha were of the same generation. As for this Zhang Laowu, he was also a man with a hard fate. His wife died in childbirth while giving him a son, leaving behind just the boy and him to depend on each other. Zhang Laowu had to be both father and mother, raising the child on his own. It wasn't easy to raise the child, and then he ran into a black bear in the mountains. He made it out alive, but his leg was broken. Luckily, Zhang Laowu was a real expert at driving carts, and by driving carts for the production team, he could barely make ends meet. "Second uncle, what brings you here? Come on in. Dad, second uncle is here." The speaker was a young man who didn't look too bright, named Zhang Liang. Yes, that's right, the very same name as that Zhang Liang who strategized within the command tent and won victories 1,000 miles away, but it was only a shared name, nothing more. Speaking of this Zhang Liang from Choyinggu, it's really hard to put into words. Who knows whether it was because he suffered oxygen deprivation to the brain during a difficult birth, or because the name was too grand for him to bear. The villagers generally called him Biaozi. He looked neat and proper enough, but those big eyes brimming with wisdom gave him away. Calling him the village guardian was already a compliment. Looking at Biaozi's burly figure, Li Shanhe's gaze was full of mixed emotions. Maybe because Biaozi was the same age as Li Shanhe and also a relative, he had obeyed Li Shanhe's every word since childhood, with only one exception. After Li Shanhe got into trouble in his previous life, he repeatedly urged Biaozi that if anything happened, he should pin it all on Li Shanhe. But in the end, Biaozi stubbornly took everything onto himself. And before he left, he asked to see Li Shanhe one last time. Li Shanhe remembered that final meeting. Zhang Liang only stared at him and chuckled, watching as Li Shanhe cursed him out. And in the end, he said to Li Shanhe, "Second uncle, you're someone meant for great things. Live well, and help me be filial to my parents. I'm going now, second uncle." Just then, Zhang Liang came over and threw an arm around Li Shanhe's shoulder, interrupting his thoughts. His huge head leaned in close, and he waggled his eyebrows at Li Shanhe. "Second uncle, feels good or not?" Li Shanhe was stunned by the question. "What the hell do you mean, feels good or not? What are you babbling about over there? If you've got something to say, say it. What else could it be?" "Wu Jinlian, of course. Everyone in the village is saying. You've gotten mixed up with Wu Jinlian. Second uncle, I heard Wu Jinlian really knows how to have fun. You just lie there and don't even have to move. That big ass of hers is like a millstone." Li Shanhe's face turned green. He clapped a hand over Biaozi's mouth and barked in a low voice. "Don't fucking talk nonsense. There's nothing going on between me and Wu Jinlian. Your second aunt is Tian Yulan. So keep that loose mouth of yours shut and don't let it flap like a cotton-padded pants waistband." Zhang Liang nodded and looked at Li Shanhe with an ambiguous expression. "Second uncle, I get it, I get it. I won't say a word even if you beat me to death. There's nothing going on between you two." Li Shanhe was helpless. Then on second thought, how did this fool know Wu Jinlian knew how to have fun? He looked at Biaozi suspiciously. "Biaozi, how do you know Wu Jinlian knows how to have fun? What? Have you messed around with her too?" Zhang Liang looked at Li Shanhe with complete confidence. "Yeah, so what? Before the new year, I went into the mountains to haul timber and ran into Wu Jinlian picking mushrooms. She asked me if I wanted to feel good for a bit. And I thought, how good could that be? But afterward I found out it really did feel damn good. Second uncle, what are you scared of? In our village, who hasn't had a fling with her?" Li Shanhe looked at Zhang Liang in astonishment. Well, Zhang Liang, you look all upright and honest, but you do all kinds of things, huh? Second uncle, I'm telling you, it feels awesome. Next time let's feel good together. A few days ago, I saw Changxi and, who was that other guy again? The three of them were together. Why should the two of us be scared to do it together? I'll let you go first." Zhang Liang thumped his chest and declared righteously. Li Shanhe smacked his forehead. Good grief. And he even fucking eavesdrops on bedroom walls. Just then, Zhang Lao also came out the door. Fifth brother, Biaozi's about to go to heaven. He wants to be Eskimo brothers with me.